In 2025, Captain Ibrahim Traoré made an announcement that shocked the world. Not about war. Not about oil. But about birds, 20 million of them. Not pigeons, not chickens, but tiny, fragile quail. He stood before a crowd in Wagadugu and declared the beginning of a revolution. Not with guns, but with wings. To many, it sounded absurd. How could releasing millions of quail into the Sahel, a harsh, dry land, possibly solve anything? But Traoré wasn't joking. This wasn't satire. It was a national strategy. He called them soldiers of sovereignty. While the world laughed, Burkina Faso mobilized. These quail weren't just birds. They were biological weapons against hunger and pests. They don't need expensive feed, they reproduce quickly, and they feast on grasshoppers, locusts, and even mosquitoes. In a land where chemical pesticides fail and imported food is a constant burden, the quail offered a different kind of solution, small, silent, but powerful. Hatcheries sprang up across 3 regions. Millions of baby quail chirped in warm crates, waiting for release. Trucks rolled across the countryside, delivering flocks to villages. Each release became a community event, elders chanting, children chasing birds, families watching clouds of feathers disappear into the millet fields. Against the backdrop of dust and drought, life was being released into the wild. Within just 6 months, over 3.5 million quail had been released. The government poured in $45 million to scale the operation. Their goal? 20 million birds in 5 years. But what really mattered were the numbers no one expected: 100 million eggs per year. Thousands of tons of meat. Enough to close the country's protein gap, and maybe even turn quail into an export commodity. But questions came just as fast. Could the quail survive predators like hawks and snakes? Could they really feed a nation, or would this all collapse into another failed African experiment? And more urgently, who would control the benefits? In rural villages, farmers watched with cautious hope. A farmer in Yako said, "If these birds save my harvest, I'll name my son after them." In the cities, intellectuals joked online, memes of quail in army helmets flooded social media. But behind the laughter was curiosity. Something was happening. Internationally, reactions were split. Western media mocked it. Burkina bets on birds, they laughed. But Asian countries paid attention. Quail are a staple in Japan, China, India. Agricultural journals began running serious studies. The idea wasn't so crazy after all. By the end of year 1, nearly 7 million quail had been released. Over 50 million eggs were collected. Villages reported a 20% drop in crop damage due to fewer pests. It was working, at least on the ground. But then came the scandal. Leaked documents revealed that foreign corporations had quietly signed contracts with Burkina Faso's Ministry of Commerce. These companies, mostly European and Asian, were given rights to purchase 60% of quail products at discounted rates, for the next 15 years. The people were outraged. They had released the birds, raised them, protected them, and now the profits would fly elsewhere? Protests broke out. Placards showed quail trapped inside dollar signs. Villagers watched trucks, guarded and refrigerated, take away crates of eggs in the middle of the night. Where were they going? Not to local markets. Not to their children. It was betrayal. Or so it seemed. But Traore responded swiftly. On national television, flanked by engineers and farmers, he unveiled the next phase: Burkina Faso's first domestically run quail processing plant. Located near Bobodai Lasso, this facility would sort, pack, freeze, and even develop powdered protein from the quail, all inside Burkina Faso. No more raw exports. No more middlemen. "This is our freedom," he said, holding up a carton stamped "Made in Faso." "The foreigners may invest. But the sovereignty stays here." Within months, production soared, 150,000 egg cartons per week. 20 tons of meat per month. Local women found jobs in packaging lines. Farmers saw their income double. And for the first time in decades, Burkina Faso was exporting not just raw goods, but finished products. Quail eggs landed in markets in Lagos, Abidjan, and even Dubai. Critics abroad pushed back. European trade groups called the products eggs of the sand. But no revolution goes unchallenged. In 2029, an outbreak of Newcastle disease wiped out 10% of the national flock. Critics said, "We told you so." But instead of collapse, something else happened: resilience. Villagers responded with emergency plans. Hatcheries kicked into overdrive. Veterinary teams trained thousands in biosecurity. The recovery was fast and powerful. The quail had become a permanent part of the nation's food system. Markets overflowed with eggs. Co-ops flourished. Neighboring countries like Mali and Niger came asking for help. Could they start their own quail revolutions? Burkina Faso had once imported food and ideas. Now, it was exporting both. Still, the final question remained: who controls the future? Because as global demand rises, and profits soar, the vultures circle. Foreign buyers. Middlemen. Speculators. Can Burkina Faso hold the line? Or will its revolution be stolen, again? Captain Traore held up a single egg and said, "This is not just food. This is sovereignty in a shell. Small. Fragile. But unstoppable." That's the story of the 20 million quail. And the bigger story of a continent finding its wings.